If you react with anger, they learn you are easy to provoke. Toxic people rarely reveal their true intentions at the beginning of a relationship or conversation. Most of the time, their behavior appears calm, friendly, or even charming. They may seem supportive, interested, or even protective. But beneath that calm surface, something very different is happening. Instead of attacking openly, toxic people often begin with small psychological tests designed to study your reactions. These tests are subtle and carefully disguised, which is why most people never notice them at all. To an outside observer, the interaction may look completely normal, but to the toxic person, it is something else entirely. While others are focused on the conversation itself, toxic people are watching something very different. They are watching your emotions. They are studying how quickly you react, how strongly you respond, and how much influence their words have over you. Every reaction becomes information. Imagine sitting quietly in a room late at night. Everything around you is calm and silent. Then suddenly, your phone lights up with a message. The glow of the screen breaks the darkness, and you slowly read the words. It might be a sarcastic comment. Maybe it is a passive-aggressive remark, disguised as humor. Or perhaps it is a message that feels slightly disrespectful. At first, it seems small, almost insignificant, something easy to ignore. But behind that message lies a hidden purpose. Because toxic people are not interested in your explanation. They are interested in your reaction. Your emotional response tells them more about you than anything you could say. If you react with anger, they learn you are easy to provoke. If you rush to defend yourself, they learn criticism affects you deeply. If you begin explaining your actions repeatedly, they learn that you care about their approval. And every reaction becomes valuable information. To toxic people, your emotions are like buttons on a control panel. Each reaction reveals exactly which button they should press next. Once they discover the right buttons, controlling the situation becomes easier. But these psychological tests rarely start aggressively. They almost always begin with something subtle, something small enough to avoid suspicion. The first test is often called the disrespect test. This is where toxic people introduce a small insult disguised as humor or sarcasm. The comment may sound playful on the surface. It might appear like a harmless joke or a casual remark. But its real purpose is to observe how you respond to disrespect. Your reaction becomes the data they analyze. If you react emotionally, they learn something important. They learn that their words influence your emotions. And influence is the first step toward control. The moment they see emotional discomfort, they realize they have discovered a weakness. And toxic people are extremely skilled at exploiting weaknesses. They remember what triggered you. They remember what upset you. And later they may use the same tactic again. But when you remain calm and emotionally neutral, something unexpected happens. The test suddenly fails. Without a reaction, they cannot measure your limits. And uncertainty makes toxic people uncomfortable. Manipulation requires predictable emotional responses. Without predictability, their strategy begins to collapse. When this happens, toxic people often move to another tactic, the guilt test. In the guilt test, toxic people attempt to shift emotional responsibility onto you. They may say things like, "You always make things difficult," or "You never care about how I feel." Statements like these are carefully designed to trigger guilt. Many people instinctively apologize when they hear accusations like this, even when they have done nothing wrong. And that apology reveals emotional vulnerability. To toxic people, guilt is one of the most powerful emotional tools. because someone who feels guilty becomes easier to control. They begin adjusting their behavior to avoid criticism. They start questioning their own decisions. And slowly, their confidence begins to weaken. But emotionally intelligent people respond very differently. Instead of reacting immediately, they pause. They take a moment to observe the situation before responding. They analyze what is actually happening and ask themselves a simple question. Is this manipulation? This moment of awareness changes everything. Because when there is no emotional reaction, the guilt tactic loses its power. Without emotional leverage, toxic people lose influence. When guilt fails, toxic people often move to another test, the boundary test. This test reveals how much behavior you are willing to tolerate. Toxic people slowly push your boundaries over time. A small favor becomes a larger request. A minor disrespect becomes a repeated pattern. A sarcastic remark becomes open criticism. They watch carefully to see how far they can go before you react, because tolerance tells them how much control they can gain. But when you calmly say no and set a clear boundary, everything changes. Boundaries remove their control, and control is what toxic people depend on. When toxic people realize they cannot control your reactions, they often escalate their behavior. They may provoke you more aggressively. They may criticize you more harshly. Or they may attempt to confuse you with mixed signals. But when you remain emotionally stable, their manipulation stops working. Because manipulation depends entirely on emotional reactions. Without emotional chaos, their influence disappears. And this is the moment where the power dynamic begins to change. You are no longer reacting automatically. You are observing their behavior with clarity, and observation removes their advantage. Manipulation works best when people are emotionally overwhelmed, but emotional control disrupts that entire process. When you remain calm, their tactics become obvious. You begin to notice patterns that were invisible before. You start recognizing the tests. You begin seeing the disrespect, the guilt manipulation, and the boundary pushing for what they really are. And once you see those patterns, you cannot unsee them. The manipulation becomes predictable, which is why emotional control is one of the strongest psychological defenses a person can develop. Because toxic people lose power the moment they realize they cannot control your emotions. When your reactions disappear, their tactics stop working, and the psychological game they were playing finally ends. Sometimes the most powerful response to toxic behavior is not anger. It is not confrontation. It is calm awareness.